Hi everyone, thanks for joining and welcome to today's webinar on unifying your email and push strategy to build amazing customer experiences. We're thrilled to have Jeff Hasten as a speaker on this webinar. Jeff was the CMO at HipCricket and has authored 2 books on mobile. He's the founder of a mobile consultancy that helps businesses by enabling them to define their mobile strategy. I'm the product marketing director at Follow Analytics, and I've been working in mobile for some time now. I've worked as a mobile marketer myself, marketing casual and strategy games during my time at Gree. Since I've been at Distimo and App Annie, working closely in the mobile app ecosystem. Before we get the webinar started, let's go over some simple housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be sent to everyone, so don't worry, it'll be available for your reference on demand. We encourage your participation, so if you have any questions during the webinar, just type them into the question box and we'll spend the last 15 minutes of the webinar answering them. I'd like to start with just a few words on Follow Analytics. We help companies better understand their app's users and communicate and engage with them through contextual and real-time mobile messaging. Just a sample of the companies that we work with. Today, we're going to set the stage by talking a little bit about email and what it means for marketers, and the introduction of push and the changes that it's bringing for marketers. We'll parse out the challenges that marketers are facing and dig deeper into why it's important that you integrate your push and email strategy and the role that technology is going to play to make this happen. We'll follow that up with best practices and how you can best move forward. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to hand it off to Jeff now, who'll kick us off.
So I'm going to spend 20 or 30 minutes or so giving a bit of background and some best practices, and I'm going to hand it back off to Tanisha. Some of the research that we did actually was surprising in terms of email acceptance and times when people want to view email and best times to reach them. So why don't we launch, email, I think, in a lot of ways, with all due respect to those email marketers on this call. Email has a bit of a stigma to it, or a bit of a descriptor where we get so many emails that there's an idea being, well, maybe there's a better way to reach out to folks. And actually, looking at this study, which is quite striking, you can see that more than 7 out of 10 consumers actually choose email as a way to communicate with brands and with businesses, and I think that's for a variety of reasons. I think email provides great value in terms of providing really deep experiences, and I often think about some of the brands that I do business with, and Alaska Airlines is one of those. And Alaska Airlines, I fly all the time. I know a ton about Alaska, but I really look forward to their emails because they do a great job with their newsletters, and they provide background information that just isn't available, or isn't the best way to reach me if they were going to send me a push message or even send me a text. But also, email does have a bit of limitations. And I think we would all admit that we get a ton of emails, and I think that is part of the question in terms of, is this the best way to reach folks at any given time? And the limitations, or the big limitation that we see when it comes to email, as opposed to, say, a push notification or a text message, has to do around the timeliness. I spent a ton of time in doing SMS, text message marketing when I was at HipCricket and subsequent to that. And for text, it's always been said that texts are read within 4 minutes, 96 or 97% of the time. And we even see people, nobody on this phone, of course, nobody on this webinar, but we actually see people who are rude, and they'll put their phone, or they'll stop a conversation that they're having with us. They'll put their phone up to take a look at a text. But the flip side of that is that push notifications and text messages have a way of breaking through, and it's a great way to ensure that somebody is going to see something in a timely fashion. We'll we'll show you some best practices and some day in the life kind of scenarios, which will illustrate that specifically about why you would want to send a push as opposed to send an email at a particular time. And then you likely know that we get a lot of spam. We get a lot of messages that are sent to us that are irrelevant, and that many of us are irritated, or it's kind of an acceptance, or we just have no other way around it, where we're going through our email boxes every morning and kind of clicking no, no, no. And a stat that we saw from Trend Micro says that nearly half of the emails that are sent in the United States are spam. And what that means for us as marketers, for us as brands, is when the recipient believes that maybe something that is being sent to me is of value. Maybe I should look at it, maybe I shouldn't. Thereby, there's an opportunity for us to do effective push notification marketing, where, as we'll show you over the next several minutes, what we really are after is providing value and really getting past this point of maybe this is a communication that's not what I'm really seeking or not relevant to me. And as I'm sure you know, you likely either have your mobile device in your hand at the moment, or you have it within a couple of feet of you. We really have seen the invigoration of email, and I think my experience, I'm more up to date when it comes to my inbox, and I think probably your recipients and you as well are, because we have our mobile devices, and what we're able to do is to kind of do, maybe triage, maybe figure out which of these emails that we want to read and which emails we want to kind of put in the parking lot and take a look at, maybe on the weekend or maybe when we have more time. It's interesting, a stat that we saw from a conference says that of Gmail users, 75% of the 900 million Gmail users access their accounts on a mobile device. And that email is really becoming the primary mobile channel. And this isn't a webinar that's going to give you a deep look at best practices when it comes to email, but it's really important for us to provide pleasing experiences when it comes to email, to render properly on devices, to have an understanding that people are potentially reading emails on a mobile device. So you want to be as succinct as possible and follow some of the things that you would think about when it comes to how people view mobile. We've talked in the past about snackable information, information that's available, that's quick, that's timely, and that's wanted and effective. The opportunity with mobile, you've probably seen stats similar to this, and we can run through all sorts of stats in terms of when people look at their mobile device and how often they look at their mobile device. But suffice it to say that this mobile device is something that has become an appendage for the majority of us. And I think actually these numbers, while they're large, they're probably understated. I think there are people who are out there who aren't really admitting that they so-called sleep with their phone, and that it is with them in all places. Just these stats that we came across, nearly 9 out of 10 check their smartphone at least a few times a day. I will venture to say I know that those of us on the call are marketers, and we use our mobile devices more than most, but I'll venture to say that those of us on the phone have checked our phones at least a few times since this webinar started. And I'm not insulted by that. I think it's just a fact of life. This is what this device has done for us. And 36% admit that they're constantly checking and using their phones. I carry an iPhone, and I'm not only looking for email, but I'm actually pushing. I'm actually going in and trying to get emails pushed to me to make sure that my inbox is current, because sometimes they don't happen in a timely fashion. So we are constantly waiting for that information. The expectation is there, and thereby provides great opportunity for us when we talk about using push. And then one more, this is a Bank of America study when it comes to folks who are looking at their mobile phones. Again, I know that many of you know these stats, but what was interesting with this particular study was this was really segmented by younger millennials versus total respondents. And the takeaway from this slide, hopefully you can see the numbers, that millennials are over-indexing when it comes to usage of mobile devices, and that's important to many of us on the phone who are reaching these folks who either have customers or prospects in this area. Some things that I'll point to here, 54% of millennials are constantly checking and using their phone. And then I actually was thrown when I first saw the stat. It says 0% of millennials check it in the morning and the evening, and that really, just to provide some clarification, that's only check it in the morning and the evening. So this stat is saying that there's much more usage than just morning and evening. You know, what about afternoons? What about late night? So this is a great, really snapshot in terms of the overall use of mobile. I can give you a quick personal story. I have charted mobile in my family, and I think maybe you have as well. I was one of the early adopters. I got into mobile early, and I had family and extended family who would visit us for the holidays. And we started out maybe 5-6 years ago, and I was the first one to have an iPhone back in 2007. Actually, it was like 8 years ago. And I had questions from family members in terms of why I was spending so much time on there. I remember one case in particular, I checked to see traffic because I wanted to know we needed to get from point A to point B, and I checked the traffic. And the question I remember being asked was, well, why are you doing that? And being an early adopter, for what that's worth, my answer to them was, why wouldn't I do that? And that's really the world that we live in. You know, you fast forward. I have an 86-year-old mother-in-law who's been staying with us for a few months this winter. She has an iPhone, she has an iPad, and she asked, her consumer expectations are really high. I talk about that a lot in my new The Art of Mobile Persuasion book about customer expectations. And one question she asked me in particular, I constantly remember. She asked why she can't start playing an Angry Birds game on her iPhone and pick up where she left off on our iPad. And this is from an 86-year-old mother-in-law. And I'm not here to hype mobile. I'm not here to sell you on things that you already know about how mobile has really become a part of our lives. But it's just, I'm sure you each have your own illustrations in terms of the importance of mobile and the usage of mobile. And these things that I was talking about, like checking traffic, like buying tickets for a show, even this past Christmas time, the use of Uber for the first time for some folks in the family was eye-opening for them. And I think that's really tells you how far that we've come. So with that, we also have the opportunity and the decision. We have decisions that we need to make when it comes to how do we as brands reach folks. We have a number of different channels. We're going to talk obviously a lot about push and email, but we can deliver optimized messages directly to one's pocket or one's hand, and we can do it through at least four ways. We can do it through push. We can obviously do it through email. We could do it through in-app messaging, which I know that Follow Analytics is an expert on this, and you certainly can talk to them about that as well. And also as SMS, as I mentioned, I've spent a ton of time building mobile loyalty clubs and working in that area. So we have a great opportunity in that regard as well. So we're going to switch and really talk about the subject at hand, which is push and how it is complementary to email. The first stat that I wanted to show you was this is information that I received from Follow Analytics when they did a look at their customers. These are enterprise customers, so the numbers are a bit high, but it is striking to see that 6 out of 10 users are opting into push. Just to set the baseline for everybody to understand, Push notifications, we need an opt-in. So what we are looking to do is to ask people to consent to get a notification pushed to them. And the best practices, as we'll talk about in a minute, what we really want to do is we want to be careful when it comes to that privilege. We want to be relevant and timely, and we definitely want to understand that that is a privilege for us, and that we really want to use that consent wisely. Some of the smartest people that are analyzing mobile are folks from Forrester, and we came across a number of reports that talk about the importance of push, even to the point of Forrester now looking at push as being what it's calling a core component of our marketing mix. And as you can see from this report, what Forrester is suggesting is that push isn't necessarily a replacement for email, SMS, and other direct messaging tactics, but it really becomes this complementary channel that has key benefits over some of the other tools. We'll talk about in a minute about how you can be relevant and contextual. Like I said, I've spent a ton of time in SMS, and SMS, with all due respect to those friends of mine and those smart colleagues who are doing SMS, I think push is a lot more one-to-one. I think a lot of text at this point is kind of one-to-one list, and push gives us the opportunity. It really is a different way to reach folks, a more personal way to reach folks, which is really what we're after. And what Forrester is saying is that it's going to become a core component of any direct marketing and relationship program as we move forward. I'll also say that personalization is really that opportunity that we're seeing in 2016 when we talk to all the big time marketers, the folks who are really spending and really looking to bring CRM and tie everything together. They are looking at 2016 as being the time for us to really deliver on personalization. And we'll talk about how mobile marketing automation fits into that that mix, how it really becomes something that those of us in marketing have been looking for quite some time, the ability for us to kind of orchestrate the different channels, the different communications, and really follow this customer journey. So I want to talk for a few minutes about the benefits of push to make sure that everybody is on firm ground in terms of, so why would we do push versus another channel? Well, first, the first benefit is that we have the ability to engage and re-engage users. So the best case scenario for push, what you're doing is you are providing value. You have somebody download an app, and rather than immediately ask them if they want to receive push notifications, you provide value. They go, you know what, this is an experience that's good for me, and then you have the ability to engage and re-engage users, and that really is critical. When we look at the apps that get used, it's a relatively small number, but what we want to do is use push as a way to provide value, provide information that folks are seeking and that they want to re-engage with you. The next one we talked about was letting users opt in, and frankly, the reason I got into mobile in 2007 was the promise of actually having consumers raise their hand and say they want to have a conversation with us. I think that's awesome. What we want to do, as I wrote in my book, was not overuse the privilege and feel like we are going into somebody's house or putting up our feet on the table, we're eating their pizza, and we're going to leave whenever we want to. We're really letting consumers, those users, even in the B2B format, opt in to understand that they are in control. Why SMS and push have been successful is really that we have the consumer understanding that they are the ones who can stop the flow whenever they want to, and those of us, if we're doing our jobs correctly, are not putting our brands in position to get opt-outs, because what we're doing is we're, again, we are realizing it's a privilege, and we're performing to the consumer's expectations or even higher than that. Also, benefits of push notifications, we're getting valuable data and insights. We're seeing what folks are reacting to. We are seeing what is working for them. We are bringing this data into the broader picture of when it comes to CRM and understanding this consumer on a one-to-one basis. Also, push allows us to bring into effect context. And by that we mean where somebody is and when they're there. Being in Times Square at noon versus Times Square at midnight is an entirely different experience, different motivation. So we want to take contextual signals into account. I'm looking out the window. I live in Seattle, and I know this will shock you. It's raining. So what you probably don't want to do is push a Slurpee offer to me right now. It's one of those Seattle winter days. So what we want to do is take into account as much context as possible and deliver accordingly. And then push notifications. They really need to be simple. We're not looking to deliver a book's worth of information. What we really want to do is to provide an avenue for somebody to find something around them, to take a step to potentially make a purchase that's around them. And really what we want to do just in mobile in general, but in push in particular, is we want to make it as simple as possible. The growth of push notifications, I remember when push first came out, it was the same as it was when it had to do with mobile loyalty clubs delivered via SMS. The question was, well, why are people going to want to have these so-called intrusions? Why are people going to want to be pinged? And really what we've seen parallel into what I was doing years ago and what we're doing now is that actually you would be surprised that when you provide value to mobile users, they actually are raising their hands and wanting to participate because they see that there's something in it for them. This is a great study that we found that in 2015, those users who enabled push notifications launched an app an average of over 14 times a month, versus those who did not launched an app only 5 times a month. And as I mentioned several minutes ago, we have a lot of apps on our phones, but we don't open that many apps. So push gives us the opportunity to raise awareness for an app, gives us the ability to get an app opened that might have fallen out of somebody's consciousness, or they weren't quite thinking about it. So this is a great illustration of the success that we can see from that. And then push notifications are effective in more than one demographic, and this really doesn't have to do with somebody needs to be of a certain age, but we are seeing that millennials, back to that important group that we talked about earlier, more than 8 out of 10 are claiming to respond to push notifications that they've received. So not only are we looking to provide information for those who are consenting to receive push, but we're likely asking them to take an action. And 8 out of 10, or more than 8 out of 10, are responding to these pushes is a really big number. Really good to see. And then in terms of the value of push notifications, here's a different source, but 7 out of 10 of consumers found all types of push. And these can be anything from an order update to a message that has to do around somebody's location to be valuable. It's funny, just at the very moment I'm waiting for a notification that a chair that I ordered is being shipped. This is just a real quick personal story. So I work out of my house. My back is hurting from an old chair. I purchased a high-end new chair, but the chair hasn't been shipped yet. And I'm waiting for notification that way. This would be the perfect way for them to notify me and for them to allay my worries that, hey, they have already taken my credit card. They've already closed the deal from their end, but really what I want to do, I'm anxious to see, and we see this all the time, that a bicycle that you purchased at Walmart is in the store and ready for pickup. That's a great example also of a push notification that provides value. I want to talk for a bit about best practices for push. Some of these may be familiar with you, but we want to make sure that we give you a comprehensive look at some of the best practices. Push is relatively new, but it's really rules of the road, and really there have been tons of successes. What we can really do is take a look and go, okay, so what are the lessons that we've learned? The first best practice is you want to provide this value. So what you want to do, obviously, is not duplicate information and really provide information that is frankly suitable for a push. Information that I'll go back to Alaska Airlines. If Alaska Airlines is sending me a push that a new market is opening up, that they're opening up new cities in Costa Rica in the spring, that's obviously not value added for a push. So what best practices is, what you really want to do is define what kind of information would be very timely, what information would be considered useful by the recipient. You definitely want to have high standards when it comes to making a push. I constantly am talking to brands, talking to agency folks about less is more, what best practice for push, for SMS, and in all mobile communications is figure out what your business objectives are, work backward and go, okay, how can I follow those how can I take a path that allows me to realize my business objectives, but I can take as few steps as possible, because back to this idea of what we don't want to be is an intrusion. The third one is we want to, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, ask users to opt into push and tell them about the benefits they'll get from opting in. The biggest mistake one makes is they have someone download an app and immediately ask for that opt-in. Clarity, transparency, and really promising that you're going to deliver for the consumer, for the app user, is of utmost importance. You also, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you want to give users control. You want to let them opt into the types of push they want. They might do that through an email form or a form that's on a website, but you want to give them the opportunity to make the decisions about what kind of information that they get. You want to have what I call a steady cadence for how often you communicate. Forever we've been asked the question, how often do you want to send a message, an SMS, or a push notification to somebody? And back to the as few at times as possible thinking, but you also want to make sure that you're not doing this so infrequently that the value is lost. So what you want to do is you want to figure out, again, I couldn't emphasize more, you start with your business objectives, work your way backward, but have this steady cadence where when somebody does get a push notification that they've opted into, they don't go, wait a minute, I don't remember signing up for this, why is this coming, this is out of the blue. You want to make something that is sensible for your business. And you also while you obviously don't want an opt-out, you want to offer an easy opt-out. And the reason you want to do that is you want to be a good partner, so to speak, with the app user, and what you really want to do is really convince them that they have this control in their own hands. So why is this all important? What is what's the interest in spending an hour talking about this subject? Well, there are at least 4 challenges that today's marketers have when it comes to all of the different channels and all of the different interests that a mobile user would have. The first one is to deliver messages across channels in a seamless and engaging way. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that everything is in concert, again, that we're not repeating information, that we're not that we're not falling down and failing to account for information that somebody already had or is that not relevant to them. And we also obviously want to be engaging. What we want to do is we want to make our information something that somebody wants to take time to take a look at. The second challenge is we need to know, as we're talking about here, which channel gets the best results and how to keep your customers happy. And it's all about your individual customers and all about what it is that they want. Some of the biggest studies that we see, Nielsen, ComScore, Pew Internet, it's great information at the 30,000 foot level, but what you want to do is you want to know your individual customer base. You want to ask them, you want to talk to them, you want to communicate with them in any way you can to get as relevant as possible with them. You definitely, the challenge is we have this radar up when it comes to spam. So what we want to do is to separate the email and the push teams. We don't want to separate them because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're not overly targeting. So that really what we need to do is to have a cohesive marketing effort going out there. And we want to take the information that we can glean from what we're doing or maybe what we're not doing, and we want to optimize across channels for sure. Back to this Forrester report that we had, and back to what I was talking about in terms of expectations, consumers actually are expecting brands to provide this integrated experience. And while they would not necessarily use those words, and I would bet that they would not use, hey, I want an integrated communications flow from you. What they really want to do is they want to have the information in a sensible way. They don't want to be overloaded. They want a push notification to have information that is suitable back to the timely fashion, and they also don't want to be overwhelmed. And I can't stress enough the consumer expectations. I also wrote in the book about consumers fleeing from brands who are providing bad experiences on mobile, and they are celebrating and doing more business with those brands that are doing great things. And then when it comes to the ultimate, the business results, this is a big number. More than 4 out of 10 customers are more likely to make a purchase when mobile offers are part of an orchestrated campaign. This stuff takes time. Oftentimes multiple channels need to be used when it comes to this, but 4 out of 10 is a very large number, and it really can make or break a lot of businesses. And we also want to make sure that in mobile with push and email, but mobile in general, what we want to do is we want to think experiences, and we don't want to necessarily think about campaigns. And there's this misnomer out there about the mobile-only user, and we know that that's not really realistic in a lot of our cases, especially in the U.S. Americans are switching between devices. They might be looking at a smartphone when they wake up. They might switch to their iPad and they're reading the news while they have breakfast, and they'll go on a laptop for work. They'll come back to a tablet, and so on. 6 out of 10, I actually think that that's a low number. I actually think it's higher. And then an Aberdeen study said that 9 out of 10 companies with strong omni-channel engagement retain 9 out of 10 of their customers. So that's how important this is. I want to take a few minutes. I know I'm running a little bit long, Tanisha. I want to take a few minutes and talk about this very important cross-section or this sample of what a cross-channel customer experience might look like. So this is just one example of how this might all work. Somebody is on Facebook and they'll click on an ad for a retailer. So what you will want to do as a marketer, you'll want to nurture that customer on your site. You might ask them if the tools are correct and the communications channel is appropriate. You might want them to opt into a newsletter. And then subsequently, you might, because you're getting to know about this user, especially if Facebook is involved, you can provide a personalized email, and you might goose that, so to speak, with an incentive for an app download. So then the user will download the app, And that might trigger an onboarding message that, again, we want it to be relevant to that particular individual. We might send an email that invites the customer to, let's say, a boutique pop-up weekend event. So very timely, very relevant to that consumer. And then we might send them a personalized discount coupon that's contextual based on geolocation. So what we're able to do is discern where somebody is and send them a discount based on that. The coupon will be used. They'll make the first purchase. Then we'll send a personalized email that can be based on that purchase. So we're taking that information and using it to our advantage. And then we subsequently will send a mobile push to check on the quality of the experience. And hopefully the consumer will like this experience so well that they'll do some social evangelizing. And that's, again, just one flow in terms of how the customer experience could work across channels. But it's a good illustration of how this might all play out. We want to talk about quickly about the day in the life. So some really quick examples. So the day in the life of a traveler. An airline will send a push notification to an opted-in mobile app user for a flight or a gate change. And this is really important to people like me, people like you who travel all the time. But they'll send an email with less timely information, like a sale or a new destination, because that is something that somebody will want to read when they have more time. The next one is a day in the life of a shopper. Let's say a retailer might employ a beacon or other location-based service to send a push when a customer is in proximity. So we're taking that context into account. An email in that case would be ineffective because in that situation, most emails aren't looked at immediately. Even though we have our mobile device in our hand, we're not necessarily going through our emails in that timely fashion. The next one, the day in the life of a customer, a business will send a push notification to a consumer about expiring services, which you would think would be a valuable piece of information. An email wouldn't be appropriate in this case, given the time it likely would take for review, especially if it's on a weekend, and then you'd have somebody who has an expired service and is not really pleased with the way they're doing business with you. And then a last one, a pharmacy customer will let's say, will receive an email. It'll give them information on services, hour of operation, and discount on the first visit. And then once you ask for and receive an opt-in, based on the communication in the email, the consumer can receive a push notification with an alert that a prescription is ready for pickup. These are, as we move forward, these are the kinds of pieces of information that are deemed extremely valuable. A prescription is ready, a bicycle or a purchase is ready to be picked up, something is on its way, really prime for a push. So how do we make this all work together? I'm about to hand it over to Tanisha, but again, I've been in mobile almost 10 years, and we didn't have mobile marketing automation. We didn't have this technology that allows us to integrate multiple channels and to build these omni-channel customer experiences. I think we aspired for those over the years, but we really didn't have this technology that Tanisha will now walk you through and the benefits of using something like mobile marketing automation.
Thank you, Jeff. So we're running a little tight on time, so I'll go through these slides a little faster than I normally would. But, I want to start out by talking a little bit about this new category that's been growing for some years now, but it's finally reached this momentum where it just got recognized by Forrester. Forrester just did a category defining report on MMA and named the category Mobile Engagement Automation. You've probably heard it called mobile marketing automation before, and there's a lot of contention amongst those of us that work in this category about, is it marketing automation? Is it communication automation? Is it engagement automation? And that's because the technology is enabling so much more than just marketing as we traditionally understand it. Jeff talked through some of the examples of the types of experiences that brands are able to build with this technology. It's really allowing brands to add real value for their customers. And I think that's why Forrester ultimately went with engagement automation for the category name. So Forrester is defining the category as marketing technologies that use real-time and contextual insights to proactively engage with known users in the appropriate mobile moment across the customer lifecycle via a mobile device. Quite a mouthful. So let's break this down. First of all, it's a marketing technology. It's a tool for marketers, and it'll allow them to take specific actions. We see specific things that are called out that are going to be unique and important to this category in that definition: real time, contextual insights, and the ability to engage users in their mobile moment. A mobile moment is an immediate moment of need, as defined by Forrester, for your end user. And when you are able to reach out to them in that moment, you're servicing them in their mobile moment. So, who are we engaging with? We see it clearly says known users. So you know that this technology is going to be for users you already have, your customers, and it's not a technology that's focused on acquisition. It's about being able to create experiences for users that are in your app. And finally, the idea of the customer lifecycle through the mobile device. I think that part's really key here. It's stating that mobile is a touch point across your customer's lifecycle, and I think it really speaks well to what Jeff's been talking about building experiences using all the different channels available for you, and mobile being a touch point in that customer lifecycle for outreach. VentureBeat, which most of you are probably quite familiar with, is a media property, and they have an analyst arm as well. Their mobile analyst division did a report where it asked companies that are actively using MMA technology what are the benefits that mobile marketing automation is bringing to them. So you can clearly see here that engagement and retention are outlined as major benefits of MMA right alongside omnichannel. Now, how strong the impact's going to be for you is really going to depend on how you and your team use the technology and what tool you end up using. Regardless, though, the goal of the technology is to help you engage with your customers in a one-on-one way across channels, with mobile kind of leading the charge. It can be quite daunting when you're trying to find the right partner when looking at all these new technologies. And so we work a lot with our customers in trying to figure out what their needs are, what kind of experiences they're trying to build for their customers. And so through those conversations, we've put together a checklist that we think is really essential to be able to check off all the things on this list when you're looking for a right partner in terms of this technology. So let's go through this checklist. Is it rich enough? The idea here is, can you use mobile context and external data? Can you display custom landing pages? Can you hover? Will what's being offered to you as options to reach out to your customers be interesting enough for them? And will your users enjoy receiving those messages? How powerful is it? Can you trigger a message based on your user's specific actions? Can you deep link? This is all about how powerful the product actually is and the different versatility of that product. Is it real time? When you trigger messages based on user interaction for what we call a mobile moment, there can't be any lag, not even a few minutes, because that moment is over. You have to serve them in that need. So are there any server-side computation delays? That's important for you to know. If a technology claims to be real time and yet there's a 5-minute lag, your message might not be useful to your end user anymore. Is it friendly enough? Is it built for marketers, essentially? Or are you going to need to contact IT every time you need to build out a campaign or segment users? Is it quick? How fast can you get up and going? How fast can you get everything set up and start actually building campaigns and segmenting your app's users? Is it connected? This one's really key, so we're going to dig into it a little later as well. But make sure that whatever technology you use for MMA plays nice with what you already have in place. Make sure it can share data so mobile messages can be triggered from data coming from anywhere, any of your marketing stack. Is it smart? Can it learn and indicate to you what you should be doing and who you should be sending these messages to? Is it essentially using machine learning to help you optimize? And most importantly, is the product scalable and secure? Can it handle large volumes of data? And is the product reliable for you? So I hope this checklist will be useful for you as you start exploring technologies to help you with your omnichannel marketing needs. Like I said, the connectivity component's especially important when looking into the right mobile marketing partner. So let's dig a little bit deeper into it. It's really important here that your mobile marketing automation partner have a technology that's built for connectivity. And what I mean by this is that the product easily needs to integrate with your existing marketing stack, your CRM, your customer data system, whatever it is you already have in place. Your new technology needs to have a two-way data sync so you can trigger mobile messages from CRM triggers and you can up-level your existing customer profiles with mobile data. This is how you're going to get to that 360-degree view of your customer that you're after. Data will really be the foundation for you to create a good omni-channel experience. And the way to get there is through a solution that offers true connectivity. So you want to make sure that your technology partner has made product choices on their end that will allow their platform to connect to other systems that you have and preserve the integrity of that data. So you can easily connect, segment, retain, and use that information. Often we see companies that come to us that have partnered with technologies that say they offer connectivity, but instead what they get is an indistinguishable data dump. So it's not really useful. You want to look for a partner that's going to make choices that preserve the integrity of the data so you can have a unified view. And if data is the foundation, then mobile marketing automation is the catalyst for your omni-channel communication. Mobile is the most personal, real-time, and contextual channel available to you. So use the data and insights that you get from mobile, sync that to your existing user profiles and make them even richer, and start creating these robust experiences for your users. So when you're starting out with omnichannel marketing, there are three best practices that we recommend. The first is to have strong analytics. Make sure you know what your users are doing, what they're buying, what are they interacting with, do they have certain preferences? Knowing this will help you create better segments and experiences. For example, you can segment users that are more likely to respond to mobile communication and start your interaction with them through push. But for a different group who might prefer a different touch, you can start out via email and then move to push based on their response. So, really knowing what your user behavior and preferences is helps you curate an experience for them. The second one is breaking down your silos. And this goes well beyond your technology. We just talked in detail about the value of having a connected mobile CRM profile, but it's about more than that. How is your organization approaching mobile outreach? Is there a different person responsible for mobile marketing and for digital like email marketing? Are there totally different teams? And are they openly communicating with each other? As much as possible, work to break down those silos and have customer centric approaches, not campaign centric. And last but not the least, pick a partner that'll play nice with your existing stack. I know I've been saying that a few times now, but really it'll make your life a lot easier and your customers will appreciate it. So this is what we have for you today. We have just about 10 minutes left for Q&A. So if you've got any questions, please send them my way. And if there's a little box, you can just type them in there. And if you're interested in learning more about mobile marketing automation, you can download a white paper that we've written on it. And there's that URL on your screen. So let's get to the questions. Okay, perfect. So our first question here is, users tend to opt out of push. Can we use email to make them more likely to opt in? So, Jeff, I'll let you take this one. Before I hand it over to you, just very quickly, before you even kind of start to think along the lines of can we use email to let them opt in, to kind of incentivize them to opt in, I would think more about why did they opt out to begin with? Jeff kind of touched on this a little bit, but when you asked them to opt in, when you gave them that option in your app, think about how did you tell them why they should opt in? Did you tell them the value that they get when they opt in, and how did you incentivize that opt in? Really think about that. And so, Jeff, do you want to take over from here?
Sure, sure. I'll be brief on this one, I promise. I would flip that question around and I would ask why you got the opt-outs in the first place. That's where I would spend my time. Even before you got to the point about email, how do you re-engage them through email? I would take a long look at your cadence, at the kinds of communication, at how personal you are, and really make some learnings there. And understand, because what you don't want to do is ask for an opt-in and then repeat exactly the practices and exactly the procedures that you had just performed that had caused an opt-out. So that would be the email would be one way to get somebody to re-opt in, and you might incentivize them in an email. You might do some convincing. but I would actually try to cut that one off and go. What you really want to do is be after not having opt-outs in the first place. Just to give you like the high bar. Again, I spent a lot of time in text. We would get 1 to 3% opt-outs, and I think that that is the kind of number that we really should be pushing for, no pun intended, when it comes to push as well. Even I think we can even go higher, because I think through mobile marketing automation, through a product like Follow Analytics provides with its platform, what you can do is be more relevant and more personal than ever before. So I frankly think we should be seeing very, very few opt-outs.
Great, thank you for that. So we have someone asking us if we can give an example of push messaging for non-retail businesses. So I can go ahead and take this. At Follow
Yep.
Analytics, we work with a lot of different types of companies. We work with banks, we work with insurance companies, we work with car manufacturers. So one of our customers is Renault in Europe. And what we help them do is we help them build out what they came to us and they wanted to increase test drives in their car. And so what we did is they connected with us, we connected into their CRM, and we started basically, using CRM triggers to send push notifications to people that had expressed interest in specific cars. And we did it, we put some timing triggers on it. So we sent these push notifications on weekends and used geolocation to trigger. So if they were near a test drive center, or if they were near a Renault a Renault store where they could go and test drive a car, we would send them a very customized push saying, "Hey, you expressed interest in this car. The nearest store for you to test drive it is just this far away, and we have this ready for you to go test drive." And so by building that kind of really personalized experience, which we wouldn't have been able to do if we didn't connect into their CRM and have that information, but by using the CRM triggers and then connecting that and then using push as a channel to communicate it, because on a weekend when they're more likely to have free time, and letting them know where the nearest place for them to go take this action of the test drive is, we were able to really I think push test drives by like 17 or 18%. Let's see, another question we have is, if my users already get push notifications on their phone when they receive email on their phone, isn't that enough? So I think this question is really trying to get on, am I going to start spamming my users? Jeff, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll go back to the point I was making earlier. Not only do they need to be complementary, but you want to start with this less is more thought process. I mean, we're real big believers in push, but we're not big believers in incessant push. In fact, we think that is something that's going to get those opt-out rates that we were talking about that we want to stay away from. So yes, email and push should be complementary, and they shouldn't be interchangeable. And hopefully we made that point in terms of timeliness and some of the times you would want to send an email versus push. So they really, once you have those channels, you really want to be an orchestra leader, and use that data, that information that you're getting through a mobile marketing automation platform to be able to provide only the communications that are of value.
Great. That's perfect. Thank you for that. I think we have time for one more question. So are there times of the day when it's more effective to use one channel over the other? Jeff, do you have any experience as you've consulted companies on what they've found?
Absolutely. So there are definitely times, for instance, push and text are when people are awake kind of time frames. The last thing you want to do is send somebody a push notification while they're asleep, because the idea of a push notification is that it's timely and you're asking somebody to take an action. And if you're going to send somebody a push notification that they're going to look at when they wake up, then that probably wasn't the best channel for you to use. So I would definitely take a look and start with the respect for a user. I know in my SMS and mobile loyalty clubs experience. I'll get a text message from a brand at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they'll be talking about a burger special for lunch, and that is one of those things that will cause somebody like me to opt out because I don't want my phone to be making noises at 5 o'clock in the morning, and when it does, it worries me because the world really shouldn't be communicating with me, and I think there might be a problem. So definitely there are rules of the road in terms of times of day. Email, obviously, you can send without disturbing the consumer, and the expectation is that you can get email 24/7 or send email 24/7, but definitely not the case when it comes to push or text.
Yeah, exactly. And just to add to that a little bit, I think, of course, keeping in mind what Jeff outlined, which is the fact that push is very personal. They're going to see it right away. It's going to make their phone vibrate. Most of us sleep with our phones next to our heads. So, keeping that in mind, I would encourage you guys to do your own testing as well, because everyone on this webinar will have a different demographic, a different audience that will be using mobile in different ways. And depending on your product, depending on the urgency, if you're an insurance company and there's something that you need to kind of really let me know about right away, or if there's some kind of urgent need, I might be okay to get that push at an earlier time. I might even be grateful that I was disturbed because of if the nature of what you're trying to communicate is that important. So just to try to keep a little bit of realism and really have that customer centric approach. Think of yourself not as the marketer, but as the receiver. Like, would you want to get that message? And with those parameters in mind, test, test, test. Run tests amongst your best user groups and take those learnings, port them out to some of the others, and see what you're learning. That's really the best way to kind of figure out what's best for your database and your demographic. With that, I think we're out of time here, but thank you so much, Jeff, for being a speaker on this webinar. And if you have any additional questions, or if we didn't get to your questions, please just shoot us an email. You can reach out at info@followanalytics.com. And from there, we'll be sure to follow up to your questions and answer them. Great. Thank you, guys.